Welcome to this evening's webinar and welcome back to school for 2025. In the spirit of reconciliation, I would like to acknowledge the lands of the Darug people from which I'm speaking tonight and the traditional owners of the countries where you all are today. I pay my respect to elders past and present and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and their cultures and connections to the land and waters of New South Wales. I extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people joining us here this evening. It's a wonderful pleasure to have you all, and thank you for joining us this evening as we kick off another exciting school year. It is my greatest pleasure to introduce you to the Deputy Premier and Minister for Education and Early Learning, the Honourable Prue MP, and the Secretary of New South Wales Department of Education, Murat Dizdar. Hi, my name is Aresha Quaass and I'm the President of the P&C Federation of New South Wales. I'd like to let you know, first of all, that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared with everyone who has registered for this event. Now, we've received some great questions in the lead up to the event, in which I will be asking in just a moment. And I apologise if we don't get to every question this evening, as we have a lot of interest in this webinar with just a short amount of time. So thank you. And I'll begin by handing over to the Deputy Premier and Minister for Education and Early Learning, the Honourable Prue, and the Secretary of the New South Wales Department of Education, Murat Dizdar. Welcome to you both.
Good evening, and thank you for the warm introduction, Aresha, and thank you for the format that you put on here for the Deputy Premier and I to be able to connect with our P&C valued members right across the state of New South Wales. We're delighted to be joining you, and we're delighted with the kickoff to the 2025 school year. We want to talk about that. The Deputy Premier and I are on the lands of the Gadigal of the Eora in Parliament House. We want to pay our respects to their custodianship, their elders past and present, and Aboriginal colleagues that are with us on the call on the homelands that you're coming from as well. Just a little bit of warning up front. If you hear bells ringing here, it's the Deputy Premier who's got to hightail it in a matter of minutes to the Legislative Assembly here. She's not making her way to an extra maths lesson or a science lesson, but they do sound like school bells. And I'll hold the fort until we get the Deputy Premier back, if that occurs. Delighted to have the Deputy Premier with us, our passionate Minister for Education and Early Learning, our Minister for Western Sydney. Let me hand to her.
Thanks, Murat. Thank you to everyone who's online and everyone that will be watching this after we finish. Firstly, I would just want to say a big congratulations and welcome to Aresha as the new head of the P&C. We really value P&C Federation and all of our local P&C associations for that partnership that we have in what we're doing in public education. It is so vital, because you're there doing it in your local schools. That partnership with our parents is so vital to making sure that we can give all of our kids the very, very best opportunity through our public schools, and we can't do it without you. I know that there is so much that our P&C associations everywhere do, and this special partnership that we have at a state level is really, really fruitful, and tonight's an example of that.
I
couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, Deputy Premier is spot on there. We're both parents ourselves, and we're delighted the school gates have opened after the summer break. And we know it takes a lot of preparation on the parent and carer front to get our kids ready for school, even if they're not entering kindergarten or year 7 key transition points. We know every year is a transition point. And what we're very keen to do is tap into that excitement that our children bring to and our staff bring to a new school year. Deputy Premier, did you want to touch on some of the good data we're seeing on teacher vacancies, why that's so important, and what difference that'll make on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, at a state level, we're really seeing a significant drop in teacher vacancies across the board, about 40% across New South Wales. I hope that you're seeing that in your school communities as well. Certainly when I go to schools and Murat goes to schools, we're seeing real examples of how that's made a difference. In regional New South Wales, actually, it's much bigger, as the average of 47%. So that's good, because when we came to government, the harder to staff locations in rural and regional New South Wales were really causing a lot of concern. I mean, why that matters, I don't need to tell you as parents, is it means that we have less merged and cancelled classes, significantly less merged and cancelled classes. So there's just more chance of your children having a qualified teacher and all of the brilliance that they bring in front of them for every lesson. And that's where the magic happens. I mean, I know there'll be lots of questions tonight, and there's lots of work that we do with P&Cs to, you know, fundraise for infrastructure and all the stuff that we need to do at schools. But at the end of the day, the magic is between the students and the teacher. And we made it really clear, I believe, that our priority first up in education as a government was getting the teacher vacancies down. So we're not sort of doing a lap of victory yet, but I think we do know now that the interventions that we have made, they are working. Obviously, the teacher pay rise, growing teachers in their school community. We'll talk about this stuff tonight, I'm sure. Giving priority recruitment support where it's needed, making more teachers and support staff permanent. That is working. So we just sort of continue down that track. So we're starting the school year with pleasing news on that front. And we hopefully continue to build on that success for, you know, for all of your children.
I know you've been
Very
saying
exciting
that,
news.
yeah. Aresha, sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to say it's very exciting news, particularly being from a regional community myself, from the south coast of New South Wales. It's lovely to have those teacher vacancies filled in permanency, because schools are a community hub. And when we have that permanency of teachers, our community grows and thrives, and we have those beautiful relationships that really support our children's learning. And as you said, that magic is really in that relationship. So it's just wonderful.
Yeah, really well covered. I know our parents would really appreciate this, but the Deputy Premier has been saying when we've been visiting schools and in press conferences that every vacancy that we fill out there means another 1,000 lessons that are delivered by a qualified teacher.
Yeah, see, look at
front of
Aresha's
kids
face. That's
every
it.
year.
It is actually a phenomenal number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
that is huge.
so 40% drop in vacancies last 2 years, also halving the number of merged and collapsed classes. Has been a wonderful outcome. Parents and our students know the continuity of the teacher in front of the classroom is so critical. So good work there. I wonder if we can touch on enrolments as well. There's been a bit of coverage around that in the press, but we're very passionate about looking after you, your people that are sticking with us, who have made public education your forte and venture. We're so grateful for that. We want you to know that we don't take that responsibility lightly at all. We know that serving 800,000 students means also serving 1.6 million parents and carers, and we want to get that right. So thank you for sticking with us. But we're optimistic that we will grow enrolments in New South Wales. We're looking forward to this year's enrolment figure. I know the Deputy Premier will touch on this, but the growth audit that she tasked the department to do, then the new schools that are coming online, alongside making sure that high potential and gifted education is going to be a forte in every school, is going to be critical. Deputy Premier, do you want to touch on high potential and gifted? Because sometimes we get coverage, why don't you have more OC classes? Why don't you have more selective schools or selective streams? But tell our parents why we're going to drive high potential gifted education.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if there's any parents online that might have children in selective schools, or schools with selective streams, or schools with OC classes, but they have done it very well for many years. So we know as a system that we can offer that ability for all of our students to be able to push themselves, really, to be able to achieve their full potential. The challenge for us as a system that we started asking ourselves last year is, how do we spread that so that all of our comprehensive public and primary and high schools, particularly secondary schools, when it comes to sort of kids figuring out maybe what they're really good at and interested in, how do we make sure that we have the ability to push, I don't know if that's the best word, but to be able to stretch our kids to achieve their best. And we all know, like, even within our own families, we'll have one child that's good at something and another child that's interested and good at something else. As a system, we should be able to leverage the fact that we are so big. We have so many teachers, so many experts, 2,200 schools. And you'll be hearing us talk a lot this year. We'll have more to say about rolling out high potential and gifted education throughout the system, not just in selective schools, but and high potential and gifted might be high potential and gifted in creative and performing arts. It might be high potential and gifted in sport. That's an obvious one too. High potential and gifted maybe in leadership. You know, like it's being able to provide that opportunity no matter where you go, that in the public system, you will have a chance to really be able to tap into what is what the talent is that your child might have and how they can sort of really hone in on that, because sometimes that sort of develops, especially through their years in high school. So I'm really excited about that. That's going to come with some upgrades of some secondary schools as well. And we're going to be saying a lot more about that. So that's a really exciting space, I hope, for us to be in.
Really well described. And just to add to that, the ground, because I've come from the classroom and the principalship, what they've really dived into here is the fact that it's not just giftedness. You know, someone that's gifted really stands out, you know, on their sporting prowess or their academic prowess, but this goes to potential. So how do we help our workforce understand and diagnose potential, like the Deputy Premier said, whether in the maths or the literacy or the arts or the STEM or the sport or the leadership?
Yeah.
Is really important, because that's what connects kids to school. That's what drives them to achieve more. That's what builds self-confidence, and that's what can lead to giftedness. So I think that's been a big feature of this policy. And I think watch out for day 1, term 2, because our school development day there, right across the state, our entire workforce will undertake training, Deputy Premier, in high potential and gifted education. I also wanted to touch on attendance, because I know this is so important. You know, the undisputed education evidence makes a lot of sense. We get our kids to school, they're engaged, they're thriving, their outcomes, both well-being and academic, are a lot stronger. We have a top opportunity as parents, collectively, you and I, parents out there, to set good routines at the start of the year. Kids really respond to routine. Look, I've got 3 of my own. I can struggle, particularly when I break routine with them or lapse in my discipline around it. But setting them up for success, kicking off that school year really well, is really important. We're also very respectful, the Deputy Premier and I, that despite our best parenting efforts at times, you and I, we can come across challenges in our children, and they can be resistant to going to school. There could be anxiety. There could be a lack of motivation. Please talk to us. Please talk to your teacher. Please talk to the school principal. They know that there's resources available in the support arm as well. That does not mean you're a poor parent. It doesn't mean your parenting is lapse. We've all experienced periods like that despite our best endeavor. So we ask that you connect with us and ask for help. Every day counts. We're 200 days of delivery. You know, you miss a day a week. You miss that across 13 years of schooling, and there goes a year of schooling. So it really is important that we support as parents and guardians our efforts inside that school gates. Deputy Premier, I wonder if you touch on infrastructure, the growth audit, the new schools. I've seen you very, very dedicated and emotional when you see those new schools come into the growth corridor. What have we done here? What are we going to continue to do?
We certainly have a challenge before us, and it's sort of a personal thing for me. The community in which I live, and my own electorate, is in one of these growth areas. There's probably some people online that are from Northwest or Southwest Sydney that would know what I'm talking about. Population exploded. There just wasn't the public primary and high schools to cater for the growing population. Therefore, not only are we negating our responsibility to provide that to parents, but I truly believe a lot of our challenges with enrolments are due to that. Anyway, so we're really investing in that. We have started opening brand new schools in some of these areas, Box Hill, Malomba, in my community at Marsden Park. We're doing that in all these new growth areas. At the same time, also, we're investing quite a lot, significant record amount of money into minor works and maintenance as well. I think that will probably come up later. That's definitely a space that PNCs I know are in, and you absolutely should be in, because parents will hear from your children about what's wrong with the toilets or what's happening, you know, that we need to fix. It didn't take very long before we started talking about toilets, but that stuff is important, and also making sure that we are responsive to that, in addition to building schools that are brilliant and refurbishing schools. But the maintenance also really deserves to be part of that conversation, making sure that we are set up to respond to principals' requests quickly and locally, so that it happens and it's cost effective and we get on top of the issues. So I know that's something that we'll be speaking a lot about, because that's really important, that we make sure that our schools are the best they can be and they're maintained to a level that is acceptable, you know, because our teachers are working there and our kids are going to school in there. So that's really important to me personally.
Can you also just touch on the 100 public preschool sites? I've only ever had 100 in my career. It's been long-standing. Why was this an important commitment? Why will this change the outlook for public education?
I think this, well, I know this is probably one of the things that I'm most proud of that we're doing. By the end of the term, we will have opened 100 new public preschools on primary school sites. It's the biggest ever expansion in the history of New South Wales. I know a lot of people online will have experience with what that means, getting your child into quality preschool education for that transition to kindergarten. The evidence is so clear. It's a lay down misere. The question was, how do we provide this in terms of public provision so we can make sure that, I think it will be an extra 9,000 places by 2027
Wow.
on primary school sites. It's pretty exciting. It's a big thing to have to roll out, but I tell you what, I don't go to a school where the principal doesn't tell me that there is a difference, unfortunately, between the kids that are starting kindergarten that have had access to early learning and those that haven't. So we have to expand the bucket of kids that have access to it. That's just what we have to do. Not only is it easier for us to be able to go about our lives and get to work and be productive members of society if we want to be working while raising our children, but it's the educational opportunities that are just limitless with the access to preschool education. So some of you may be on school sites where that's coming, yeah, we're just working through them. It's an exciting piece of delivery for us.
That is a very exciting update. And that will really help with that transition from the preschool to the primary school, then to, you know, probably your local high school, just to have that seamless thread and transitioning and keeping those communities together. So parents are dropping off children at the one drop-off spot, and again, bringing that back in tight so people can meet at the school gate, have those conversations. Yeah, it's thrilling.
That's
Thank
true.
you.
I mean, that's true. It's great for the P&Cs in terms of the community of parents. Have, you know, you get them in from when you're 4 years old, they're 4 years old.
Yeah. And just to touch base back on the gifted and potential, just a bit of feedback, because our school delivers the selective stream, the half Aurora, and it's so fantastic to see those opportunities, particularly for children in regional, rural and remote Australia, to just have access to that. So that's something that, just to applaud you on that. It's a brilliant, brilliant idea and brilliant program. I can't wait to see more of that rolled out, particularly because a lot of people look at giftedness and usually think academia, but to think about that in creativity and dance and music and arts, and that expansion is just wonderful.
You get it, right? You get it, and it's often the teacher that will be able to see that spark in that kid that they maybe not have seen themselves. Murat talks a lot about, as a teacher, he talks a lot about high expectations about, so in terms of, and that's at every level, in terms of behavior, in terms of what they can achieve. And it really is pushing them to have the highest expectations of themselves.
And having that opportunity for high expectations, high potential, high opportunities, that comes together as a beautiful, magical mix.
It's exciting.
And isn't Jordan Mailata a top recent example? First Australian to ever play and then win a Super Bowl. He's only on a measly $120 million contract, and he's ex-Condell Park High School. So, you know, and they tell us at the school that he was always very, very talented in the sporting domain. So how do we foster and grow that? How do we foster the leadership talent, or if it's in the STEM or the arts?
Yeah.
potential. How do we grab potential and take that further? So I
Yeah,
think you
fostering
described
that talent,
well.
that's a really good expression, just to foster and offer those potentials. Yeah.
Aresha, just let me also touch on student, teacher, and parent voice. And let
Yep.
me let our parents out there know a slight change we're going to make. Many of them have been aware of the Tell Them From Me survey. We're actually replacing that with our own survey tool this year. We've had Tell Them From Me was a purchased survey. We've learnt a lot in our time in using it, but we want a more concise, a more timely survey that's faster to complete on a fresh platform that we're working on. And this year we can tell our parents we'll be capturing student voice. We'll nail down the student voice platform. And then from next year, we'll have nailed down the teacher and the parent platform. So you might not see our system survey for parents this year and you'll wonder where it might have gone. We're at work in developing it. We're ready to go with the student one. And we'll use the parent one and teacher one next year. This, as you know, Aresha, is a really important conduit for data and evidence on how we revamp our school plans at a school each year and how we get the right focus areas.
So it's really important parents and families get to those surveys, isn't it? And fill those out, give you their voices. And yeah. I just wanted to acknowledge that there's someone very special here online tonight. We have Gary Workman, who's the principal of Hanwood Public School, who won our Principal of the Year award. So welcome to Gary.
Congratulations,
And
Gary.
congratulations to Gary. He can be verifying the truth and accuracy of what we've been covering. He's probably heard of this in our principal live streams.
Wonderful. Welcome, Gary. It's lovely to have you here. So would you like me to start with one of our first questions for this evening?
Sure.
How is funding being allocated to support students with disabilities? And why are some schools seeing reductions in support staff like SLSOs?
Yeah, I mean, this is a growing area of concern. And to be honest, I don't think we've quite got it right in terms of how we support students with disability. And I'm going to be really honest about that, because more and more students are presenting to schools with different diagnosis and complexity. And I think we're doing the very best that we can, but there is always massive room for improvement. Every year, the demand is such that we're establishing hundreds of new support classes. So that's, and I'm sure there'd be parents of children that are in some of our support classes in mainstream settings. So that's for those students. But then there's obviously also the issue of support with for children in the mainstream class that might have an SLSO with them. Schools should not be you shouldn't be seeing a reduction in SLSO support if you're entitled to that. So what I would urge you to do, maybe via the P&C, if that's happening, we should be looking into that for you, because we need to be making sure we're using every possible bit of funding that we can get for every student to be able to make sure that they can access the curriculum, because that's their right in New South Wales, so that they can learn in the classroom. There's a range of ways that we can do that, but it's an ever-growing challenge, I'd be totally honest in saying. And I think we need to be constantly on to ways to better support our kids with disability.
I think
thank you for that answer.
Deputy Premier's nailed it. If there's a scenario out there where there's a drop in SLSO, we've got it wrong. So please reach out and let us know. We'll look at that, because the SLSO allocation should not be adjusted for a kid with their need. And the Deputy Premier is right. We're also looking at making sure, while we grow inclusive practice out there and the skills of our workforce, we also make sure we respect parental choice and demand around support units. Sometimes, you know, in a school, I know operationally when I've been on the ground, you can have a number of kids that require adjustment, and you can provide that at a personal level. And it could get to the stage where we're better off forming a support class and getting an expert practitioner and SLSO there with continuity to produce better outcomes. So I think the Deputy Premier is spot on. We're hard at work. We need to get better and tighter at how we support all our students with disability. But I can also confirm we do have record funding going into this space. I don't want you to think
Right.
that it's an area where there isn't record funding. Our parents would know there's integration funding support. There's 117 SSPs out there that we've provided additional funding because they're servicing some of our highest need students. And also we're upping the counsellor. There's an election commitment around there. But what we're trying to achieve is a better spread of support classes across the state as well. Because in some schools you can have a lot DP, you've seen some of those, and in another one you'll find you don't have one. So we want to look at trying to achieve a better spread so that we can keep our kids in our local.
This is really important, what Murat says, because I get a lot of representations from parents who are trying to get their children into a support class via the panel placement process. And it just has happened to be that the way it's worked is that there might be sort of almost like a glut of classes in one particular school, and then you might be driving past your local school to get into a support class at another school. So this, I'm not saying this is an easy piece of work, but we do have to try and make sure, I think, that it's spread out a bit better. Therefore, it's more equitable in terms of the access.
Can we just ask Aresha, our parents stay patient with us? We won't achieve that in 1 year, but it's a definite parameter that the Deputy has given to us that you'll see us make movements on across the years to make sure we spread starting this year.
And I think it's really important for us to recognise that that cycle of continuous quality improvement works really well when we do come together collaboratively. So again, if people are needing to talk stories and talk experiences, they can always come to us at the PNC. We work alongside you, and it is really about, we're always on a cycle of continuous quality improvement, and things change so rapidly and quickly, and statement of inclusions and all those things change so rapidly and quickly to be more strengths-based, have more universal design for learning. And keeping up with that, we do need those lived experiences. How is it actually working contextually? What can we do? So this is where I think it's really beneficial that our hands are in that collaborative moment.
Really well described.
Can I switch now to, with the rising cost of living and ancillary costs in education, what is the New South Wales government doing to support parents, in particular with the costs of excursions, camps, sport, and other extracurricular activities?
Yeah, I'm very passionate about this topic. That's why we put equity as one of our key features and pillars of our plan for public ed. I want all of our students, no matter what postcode, no matter what socioeconomic status background they're coming from, to not be cut out from any of our opportunities. So I've been clear in my communication with principals and schools. I know that excursions and camps and sport can be extra to the curriculum, but I don't want kids cut out from that. And I want our parents to feel comfortable enough, if they're experiencing financial difficulty, to approach our school. In our global funding we provide, our schools should be supporting parents. If there's an excursion and the cost can't be met, we should be supporting our family and our child to be able to attend that. And can I say, Aresha, across the state, I'd like to think we get a picture perfect. We don't, but a lot of sites do this really well. And that's why I wanted to double down on our communication around this. This what differentiates us from the other sectors. You know, if you're in financial difficulty, we respect and appreciate that. We don't say, you haven't paid, you can't go on the excursion. You haven't paid, you can't go on the camp. Approach the school, talk with them, indicate what that complexity is, and ask for support, because there is global funding to help with that. Now, many schools also, DP, don't even ask for funds for the excursion and wholeheartedly subsidise it and pay for it. And they recognise the SES they're serving. We've got schools where the FOE, Family Occupation Index, is in the 200s. The average is 100. So you're talking about highly disadvantaged communities. To where my kids go, Aresha, it's got a FOE of 0. It's a great public school. And parents want to contribute and can contribute. So we've got the full gamut So please approach your school if you need help on this front.
Yeah, that's important too, because at the end of the day, this might sound like a throwaway line, but every time I'm asked about this in the media or where in Parliament or whatever, it's just important to keep reminding us public education is free. And we exist to provide that quality free education. So we're not about exclusion. And that might be a difficult conversation sometimes for parents to have, but like there's not one principal in New South Wales that wouldn't be able to make sure that every child can access what is their right to access.
Yeah, thank you. We have another question. Our school requires us to contribute to classroom resources and other essential items. How is the Department of Education going to address these costs of basics being passed on to parents?
Yeah, I've asked for this to stop. It's not acceptable.
No.
The global funding should meet all of the basic requirements in our school. I've reminded our workforce, our leadership, that voluntary contributions means exactly that. The word voluntary means there's no compulsion. It's up to the family if they want to make that contribution. We provide enough funding because we receive Commonwealth and state funding. We're grateful for that. Of course, we want more. We want to deliver the 100% SRS for our students, but we provide enough funding for all of those to be met. So I've been very clear. I did a recent ABC interview where I gave my email address, my personal departmental email address online. And I've only had, pleasingly, a handful of parents write to me to say, can you help? You said you'd help. My school's doing it wrong, and we've gone back there and rectified. Voluntary means voluntary. Basic resources are provided by the school. You want your child to have their own pencil case and their own diary and their own school bag and lunchbox. Of course, parents do that part. But it's not acceptable for the school to say, bring in a tissue box and a glue stick and a whiteboard marker. That is provided by the school.
Thank you for clearing that up.
And I think this is really important because Murat's been so firm on this actually. There are 2,200 schools. So there's going to be cases where we need to follow that up. And so I think that we rely on this communication. Please take him up on that.
Yes.
Because we don't want parents to feel like they have to do it. They do not have to do that.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for clearing that up. Something that's happening at the moment, which is very delicate. What is the department doing to support schools to address religious intolerance and anti-Semitism?
Yeah, it's been a tricky space for us. It's been tricky as you've been watching what's been occurring here in New South Wales. Our DNA in public education is diversity, embracing all walks of life, regardless of culture, religious background. That's what we've done since 1884. But there's no denying when you've got global conflicts like the Middle East conflict that's been really publicised throughout the press, it impacts on school communities. It doesn't impact on every community in the state, but it impacts on school communities. We've given good, strong guidance to our schools on repeated occasions. We've got to be politically neutral. We can't take sides. We've got to support all our students. We cannot tolerate, zero tolerance around religious intolerance or racism or anti-Semitic behaviour. Cannot occur. We've been clear about that with our staff. And we have established a religious intolerance helpline. It's 1300 679 332, 1300 679 332. It's serviced on school days, but it is available to, you might think, just our staff. It's available to our students, staff and parents and carers. They should report any instance that they feel has not been dealt with by their school well. They should always raise it with the school around any degree of religious intolerance or racism on culture or religious grounds here. If they're worried about raising it with the school, please just ring the hotline. Please ring the hotline. The hotline is manned by our people in the centre. We'll follow up with the school. We'll follow up with the family as well. Zero tolerance. Our stance will never change around it. But it is disturbing when global incidences very far away impact on our schools. Our schools aren't immune from that. And I want
Yeah.
to commend our workforce who do a tremendous job in navigating that and supporting our students. We've had the odd incident from time to time. It'll occur in a large footprint like ours, but I'm proud of how we've tackled and dealt with it.
Mm.
And Australia is such a diverse nation, with New South Wales having such a high density population that it's bound to have some reflect of those global issues. Is there
Yeah.
a chance we could get that number put up in the chat box unless it's already there?
Yeah, it's called the Religious Intolerance Helpline,
Right.
and it's 1300 679 332. I can assure you, if you ring it,
Yeah.
we won't be trying to sell you steak knives. It'll be the Religious Intolerance Helpline, and there'll be experts that are manning that to take your query, concern, and to follow up on it.
Thank you for your response to that question. How do I address concerns with my school or school principal in a way that's constructive and effective? The current complaints process has not been exactly adequate to resolve my specific issues.
Yeah, I've dealt with this operationally as a teacher, as also a principal in the system, and as a parent now in the system. You know, there'll be a whole range of minor matters that should be raised directly with the school and can be solved with the teacher in the classroom level. So please do that, and please have confidence in doing that. We did update our community complaint procedures. It does sit on our department website, because we have had feedback that at times parents can be reluctant, hesitant to approach the leadership of the school. And so we have made, as part of those procedures, and I'm going to read out a website. It's the education.newsouthwales.gov.au/your-feedback. So it's our education site, education.newsouthwales.gov.au/your-feedback. We might be able to put that in the chat,
Yeah.
which has all the advice on guidance. If you're reluctant to approach the school, it's got guides, it's got how to raise your complaint further with the department, how we can support you with that complaint, and how best to shape your complaint. And I'm proud that it's in 16 community languages to recognise the diversity of our parent community.
That's great.
I'd be very naive if I said to you, we get no complaints, nothing goes wrong. We're 2,200 sites, 800,000 students, 95,000 teachers. There's 4 million people in our schools every day. There'll be things that happen. 95% will be solved at the local level.
Yeah.
Have confidence in dealing with that. And then if you're concerned, jump on our community complaint procedures at that link I gave you, and it'll guide you through how to raise it further.
And that is, again, reflective of the wonderful amount of diversity that we do have. Sometimes perspectives aren't going to meet that middle point. So having that kind of process there for parents is really helpful. Thank you for that. Another question is, why are there not enough places in support units, and what is being done to expand access? And I know we touched a little bit on that earlier, but this might be a bit more specific just to those support units, I'm thinking.
Yeah, the Deputy Premier, I thought, nailed this. We established on her signature 200 more support classes in 2024. It is a growing space for us. We do serve 26% of our student population that require an adjustment to their learning, a disability of some kind. And I think it goes back to the Deputy Premier's point. She has demanded of us that we stop just establishing them in already established schools in large numbers, but how do we have them spread across the state? Because she wants us to keep our kids in our local community. When she says, why are they driving past that school to get to another school with
where they often have siblings,
Yeah, that's right.
So the challenge here is to deliver on that mantra. With the 200 support classes I referenced that we established last year, that was another 1,500 of our students that were not in a support class, that wanted to be in a support class, could benefit from, that did. Now, I also have to strike a good balance as a secretary by making sure I can grow my workforce's capacity around inclusion, around supporting. I can't just be, out there just every child's got to go into a support class on a light adjustment. That would be wrong of us. But I've got to get the right balance. And the Deputy Premier is right. I've got to get them more spread across the state to look after our kids and community. And I've got to get the movement. Once you're in a support class, doesn't mean you can't access mainstream classes for certain subject areas, and doesn't mean you can't transition out of the support unit into mainstream. We've got to have movement both ways here as well.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
we do need that training of the staff to be
Yeah.
thinking about that whole new model of inclusion with the Bronfenbrenner socio-ecological model as opposed to the behaviourist theories that sometimes did drive some inclusion models previously. So those things, they take time to get through the university courses and develop the practice and have the mentorship. So that's a really key point there too, making sure we have the capacity to deliver on the entirety of the promise and not just deliver it in a tiny little way.
You know, what you said is true. And I think a lot of the challenge with this is it is a staffing challenge, if I'm going to be honest. And while we are getting to the bottom of the shortage, one of the areas that we still have a high number of vacancies that we clearly need to address is in, I'm going to use this in a very broad way, but in special education. So our universities have a lot to answer for in this respect, because if you left U12 last year and you're doing a teaching degree, without sort of disparaging all the institutions, our experience is that you're not really going to get a big focus on special ed as an education student studying to be a teacher. So what's happening is you're coming out of your degree, you're going into the school system, and there's an ever increasing number of children who need adjustments and and as a teacher, we need to be better at supporting them for retraining, for upskilling, professional development, all that, because we're going to need a whole workforce to deal with this challenge. You know, when people write to me or they write to their local MP or whatever, and I get the letters about what people are concerned about, one of the biggest issues, hands down, is access to support places. So it's really on our radar. But I would say, I'm being totally upfront, one of the biggest challenges is the workforce, it's supporting teachers and getting more of them that have specialised training in space.
I would agree a lot with that statement. I think when we see a lot of the United Nations Convention Rights of the Child, they were ratified in 1989, 1991. The conventions around persons with disabilities was ratified much later. So that then informs our policies in our universities to create courses that are reflective of those universal designs for learning and principles coming from strengths-based approaches and family-centered and child-centered approaches. So it does really require a specialist, I would even think a good year of training, and then to come and put it out into practice in contextual specific environments. That it's a much bigger issue. So it is something that I think we're always going to chip our way through. But again, hearing those stories from parents and families and talking to us at the PNC, bringing that knowledge together can really inform that continuous quality improvement cycle.
And I just want to add, you both describe it really well. This is not on the shoulder of the workforce. It's not the fault of the workforce.
No, that's right.
I came through without that training at Sydney University as well. So it's incumbent on people like me in system roles to provide that training, because you're talking about a very dedicated workforce who wants to, who gets frustrated by not being able to meet the need of that child. So
they're crying out for this professional support.
It means we've got to be stronger in our support of them.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. So what improvements are being made to behaviour management policies to address classroom disruptions while supporting students with additional needs? Is it behaviour management or behaviour guidance?
You know, this is a really, it could be a really difficult space, a very delicate space. We, upon coming to government, we reviewed the behaviour policy, and PNC Federation were part of that consultation, and PNC for that. Another example of where our partnership is actually so helpful, because it provides an assured way for the representatives of the parents' bodies the actual policies of the department. So that did happen. It is an ever increasing challenge. The behaviour, school by school, we need to make sure that we are supporting our leaders, principals, and in many cases, deputy principals who are responsible for this sort of thing in a school setting, to make sure they're supported to deal with behaviour, encourage high expectations behaviour. When we talk about high expectations, it's not just academic as well, it's about the behaviour, so that we can have settled school environments for every child. And it's that behaviour management it's a big part of what schools do.
And can I contribute to this? I just want to make clear, when we're talking high expectations, we're not talking high demand on children. We're talking about holding them in such high regard that we know that they're capable, and absolutely have the capacity and ability. And where the capacity is not there, that's what our teachers and communities in schools are there to support. I'd like to thank you both for being here tonight. It seems that went really quickly and we've run out of time. So thank you very much to the Deputy Premier and Minister for Education and Early Learning, the Honourable Prue. Thank you for your time this evening. And also thank you to you as well, Murat Dizdar, the Secretary for the New South Wales Department of Education. I've really enjoyed having everybody here tonight, and I look forward to us hosting another webinar very soon with more questions. So we look forward to hearing from you all in the near future.
And what's else? The bells didn't even ring for 1 hour. The parliamentary bells didn't go for 1 hour.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Take
Lovely
care. Good night.
Take care.
Thanks
Bye now.
everybody.
Bye.